Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to Friday Knits. Today I'm going to be showing you how to work this elastic onto your knit. So here I've actually done it for the hem of this piece already. This is like a new zipper jacket thing that I'm currently making. So this is an elastic is in there, and what I've done is I've just knit up my yellow to double the length of the elastic, and then I've seamed it down, and the elastic just sort of sits in there and it sort of crinkles up inside, which is what I wanted for this. So now I'm going to be doing it for the cuff, and you do it the same for the cuff as you do for the hem, so you can use this same technique on the hem. So I've got my cuff here and I've actually turned it inside out already, just so it's easier to work, especially when seaming down. And I've got my elastic here, which I have cut already. And to cut it, I just used a basic elastic I got from my local yarn store. And to measure it, I sort of put it around my wrist. Well, not my wrist, I actually put it around my hand because you want it to go over your hand. So I put it around my hand kind of like that, just to make sure I could still fit it easily. And I wanted it to be kind of not loose, but just like the exact sort of fit, so not too loose and not too tight. Like I don't want it to be fully just like wrapped around too much. So when it goes to my wrist, it will definitely be a lot looser, but that's okay. That's what I want. I want it to be kind of not super tight. So I've also left like a good 1 or 2 inches here as well. You want to leave that so that you can sew it down and give yourself some room in case you do make mistakes like I do. So now I've got my elastic, and when you've cut it to size and you've turned your cuff inside out, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to seam down these 2 pieces together, but I'm going to do it around here because it'll just be a lot easier later, so I'm not trying to wrap it around later, especially if you want to do it a lot tighter. Like say you want it to be really tight and to like fit really snugly around your wrist, it might be a bit harder to put it around. So I'm going to just sort of pre-wrap it here like that. And now the first thing I'm going to do is just seam down the elastic itself. So I'm not seaming it down to the actual garment yet. I'm just seaming down the elastic. And I'm going to use just a regular needle and just some white thread and just do like a back stitch, I think it is. I'm not too familiar with sewing that much, so it's just something just to secure this down. So I'll show you the back. I'm not going through the garment, I'm just going through the elastics like that. And then I think I'll just go through the same stitch again, and that's like a secure thing. This is like bringing me back to my textile days when I was in school. So I'm going to just seam one down there. I'm not even going to go across the whole thing. I'm just going to do really like easily one there and then like one here. And it doesn't really have to be perfect because you won't be able to see this after anyway. So that is now done. I'm just going to pull this through. So this yarn, this long tail yarn actually as well, I should say, is you want to cut off a long tail because you're going to be seaming this down here so that you're hiding the elastic. So probably do it before you turn this inside out. And yeah, cut yourself a long tail. To cut a long tail, I sort of just do this method where you just have your stitches loosely and then you wrap it around like kind of loosely a few times. And then that's sort of like how much yarn you're meant to use to seam down. I don't know, I read it somewhere and it seems to work. Like usually, sometimes it leaves a long tail, but I wrap it around about 3 times just for safety because I get paranoid. So now you see that this is on your cuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it so it's facing me, so it's a bit easier. So what I'm trying to do is, I know that this is my beginning of where I'm going to seam it, and then that's sort of the corresponding stitch that I want to seam down to and begin, because that's where I joined my new yellow yarn. Now, if you've actually done in the same color, take note of where your beginning of round is, but also I would recommend using a lifeline for where you want your cuff to sort of begin. For example, just use mint. I would have sewn in a lifeline here to know where I want it to fold over and pick up stitches. But in this case, because I've done it in a different color, you can easily see where I'm going to pick up the stitches, and it's just going to be this yellow line here. So I'm going to sort of fold this over like so, and then what I'm going to do is with my thread again, just my thread and what is this, a needle? It's hard to see, it's just a regular thread and needle. If you can, get it in the same color as whatever yarn your cuff is, but I don't have yellow yarn or yellow thread, so I'm just going to use this thread, this white thread, which will blend in. And because this yarn's quite chunky as well, it will hide it quite well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually now seam the elastic to the garment, because I want it to feel, I want it to be secure. I don't really want it to move too much around inside. Again, this is a personal preference of mine. I just don't want that to happen. So what I'm going to do is, let me see, this will be the inside and that will be facing out. So I want the outside to look good. So I'm just going to thread through this way and then have a look at how it looks on the other side and make sure I just, what I'm doing is I'm threading through between like these two knit stitches. So there's like a purl stitch between there, and that's where I'm threading through like that. And then I'm going to go back in and make sure it's like the same spot. I feel like I've moved over or something like that, but most of this will be hidden. So I'm just going to thread through there, and then I'm going to just move up a bit to the next sort of like knit stitch and then thread it through again. Like that. Again, I'm not too fussed if you can see it a little bit, if it's not super neat on this side, because it's going to be on the inside. So I'm just going to keep going up just to secure it down and to secure the elastic down to the garment. And that's like now sort of secured down. Now what I'm going to do is seam this down, this line I have here. Can't see it there. So I'm going to begin right here where I changed the yarn, and I know that's the beginning. So I know that stitch on the inside corresponds to this stitch on the inside. So I'm going to get my yarn needle and just thread my long tail yarn through, and I'm just going to begin seaming it down. And the way I seam down is, again, I like to seam the live stitches because I find like it makes it less bulky, and I find it has like a much neater finish. Like you can see here, I just find it has a much nicer finish. So this is just why I prefer to keep the live stitches on. Okay, so I'm going to go into this first stitch knitwise like that. Oh, it's hard to see. And then just continue that on. So go into the next stitch knitwise and then just seam into the next stitch. And that's basically what you do. You go all the way around. So this is a bit harder. On the hem, it'll be a bit easier to do because there's more space around it. Okay, so I'm still going here. I just want to do a quick little tip that if you're noticing it's starting to get a little bit like scrunched in like a particular area as you're coming around to it, all you have to do is just sort of pull your stitches around. Just sort of like that, because you're just trying to move it around so it like scrunches here instead, and then it'll sort of smooth out that area there, and then it'll be easier to continue working your stitches. So I've just finished seaming it up, and now I'm just sort of going to secure it just by like threading it through a little bit there. I'm going to chop that off, and that is done, and I'll have to weave those in, you know, eventually, but I'm going to turn it back so it is the right way out. And that's how it'll look on the outside, which I think is really cute, and it's exactly what I wanted. So yeah, that's the hem and that's the cuff. So I hope that helped you guys learn how to, well, this is one way to put elastic on. Yeah, so thanks for watching, and I will see you guys later.